Welcome back to the lesson 7. Our lesson 7 is taxation of small business and gaming activities. So our Rwandan law classifies business enterprises into four enterprises, where we have the small enterprise, where we have the micro enterprise, we have the small small enterprise. We have the medium enterprise, enterprise, and we have the large enterprises. You have large enterprises. We have large enterprises. So therefore, we are going to look at how these small enterprises, how the medium enterprises, they do pay tax, and they pay tax in different ways because the small enterprises and the medium and the micro enterprises, they do follow the flat tax regime. Let's look at how these businesses of micro enterprises, they do pay tax. So here they do pay tax by following the lump sum, in the lump sum ways, where we have the different turnovers, and the way the business is earning the turnovers, it has the specific amount it has to pay due to how much is that turnover. So for example, a business, the micro enterprise for it, these are the enterprises where you find that their turnover is between the 2 millions to 12 millions. This is the business that are classified under the micro enterprises. Therefore, the annual turnover we can have the annual turnover here. We can have the annual turnover here. We can have the annual flat tax in Rwandan francs, and we can say, so number one turnover here from 2 million to 4 million. Here you pay 60,000 Rwandan francs. Between 4 million to 7 million, here you pay 120,000. So between the 7 million to 10 million, here you pay 210,000, 200,000 and 10,000. So here between 10 million, from 10 million to 12 million, here you just have to pay the 300,000 francs. So this is how the businesses under the micro enterprises, they do pay taxes. They follow the lump sum regime. And from here, we need to go to the small business taxpayers. How much are they supposed to pay? So, and we have seen that for the small business enterprises, they do follow the real tax regime. So this is how we are going to the small businesses. So let us look at the small businesses. The small businesses here, the law defines a small enterprise as any business activities whose annual turnover is between 12 million to 20 millions. 12 million to 50 millions. This is how the business under the small businesses pay the taxes. So a taxpayer who earns the annual turnover between 12 millions to 50 millions, at this point, he has to be regarded as a small taxpayer, and he has to pay the rate of 3% on this turnover he has got, or the profit he has got. Let us look at one of the example, and this example is in the let us look at this small example where we have the example. Let's say John is a trader in Kigali town. His turnover during accounting period ended 31st December 2013 was 25,800,000. So then calculate the tax liability for the period. So since you have seen that this annual turnover is 25,800,000 Rwandan francs, and this amount is in which range? It is in the range of 12 million to 50 million. So this is exactly shows you that this John is under the small business enterprise, not in the micro business enterprise. So therefore, you can say since John's turnover is over 12 million but less than 50 million, he is regarded as his business is under the small business enterprise. Small enterprise. Therefore, we shall have to apply the 3%, the lump sum tax of 3% as on the annual turnover. We have to apply 3% lump sum tax of 3% to this turnover, 25,800,000 francs, where we shall get 774,000 Rwandan francs. Let us look at another second example. It is also in the YouTube description of my account. So here the question says that Frank is a businessman in town. During the accounting period ended 31st December 2012, he made a turnover of 48 million Rwandan francs, and during the period he paid an installment of 800,000 Rwandan francs as an income tax. So our requirement is to calculate his tax liability. So when you look at this turnover for 48 million, it is still under the small business enterprise, because 48 lies under falls between the 12 million to 50 million Rwandan francs. Therefore, this flank is a small businessman. So we need to apply a lump sum tax of 3%. So we take 3% times 48 millions. Then the amount you get will less the installment that were made, which is worth 800 francs. So therefore we get % times 48 million. That gives us the 800 million. Minus 800 million. That gives us 340,000 Rwandan francs. This is the final answer of this question, of this example. And another thing I can talk about these small businesses is that the small enterprises can renounce the lump sum imposition by opting for the real regime in carrying out accounting in compliance with the National Accounting Plan So when they opt for the Leo region, they must inform the tax administrators, that is Rwanda Revenue Authority in other words, and this decision is irrecoverable for a period of 3 years, starting from the date of tax administration shall be informed. So that marks the end of the taxation of small businesses. So now let's look at another part of it, which is the gaming activities, where we are going to look at the taxation of gaming companies, the companies that deals with the business of playing cards using electronic devices. Let us look at the taxation of gaming activities. In the gaming activities, the law number 29 of Rwandan tax law defines the gaming activities as just any gaming activity that is played using the electronic cards. It says it is any gaming activity, any gaming activity that is played using cards, that is playing using cards, using tickets, using equipment, using any mechanical, electrical, or any electronical, or any electric or electromechanical device or machine for money, property, checks, the credit or the credit cards, or any representative of the value, or any representative value, or any representative value. So now, from the definition of gaming activity that is provided by the law number 23 of Rwandan tax law, so we can look at the important terms in gaming, the important terms in gaming activities. Where number one important term we have is the wager. The number one important term is the wager, and the wager is just sum of money or representative of value. It is the sum of money or representative of value, that is risked on an occurrence for which the outcome is uncertain. In an occurrence for which the outcome is uncertain or is not known, is uncertain or unknown. So that is number one important term in the gaming activity. Number second term here is the taxpayer, and all of you know the taxpayer, of course, is the person who pays the tax. But in the gaming activity, a taxpayer is any gaming operator that is required to pay tax on gaming activities. Is any gaming operator that that is any gaming that is required to pay, that is required to pay the tax, that is required to pay the tax on gaming activities, on gaming activities. So from here we need to look at another important definition, which is the winnings, where the winnings is just money or the merchandise or token or the ticket or anything else of more than nominal value received by the player. So those are the winnings. You can say winnings. Winnings as just any money, or merchandise or property or a check or anything that anything else of more than a nominal value or a nominal value received by the player, received by a player. So those are the kind of the terms that we can talk of in the gaming activities. So because here we need to know the money the client or a person has wagered. We need to know the winnings he has got from that activity. So, and we need to see the difference between the wagered amount and the winnings amount, and then we tax that difference. We need to look at the categories of gaming activities. The gaming activities is categorized in two different categories. So we can say number one is, you can talk of lottery. You can talk of the lottery. You can talk of casino. You can talk of the sport books. You can here talk of gaming machine. These are like the betting machines. You can talk of the internet gaming, so on and so forth. So now let's look at the calculation of tax on gaming activities. On the calculation of gaming activity here, we can say that the tax on the gaming activities is just calculated basing on the difference between the total amounts wagered, as I've told you, and the winnings awarded. The winnings awarded minus the amount you have wagered. So the rate of the tax on the gaming activities shall be at the 13% of the difference between the wagered amounts and the amounts won. So in brief, it is just the wagered, the difference between the wagered, the winnings, you can say the winnings minus the wagered. So the difference you get, you multiply by 13%, because this is the amount of the money, or this is the tax the owner of the betting machine, for example, the owner of the betting machine or the lottery or the casino or the internet gaming has to pay as just tax 13%, as just withholding tax of 13%. Therefore, let us look at the example 1. I sent you the example 1 in your I sent you through the email, and also it will be put in the YouTube description of my account. So the example 1 says This is an example that is in the that will be put in the YouTube description, and I've also sent it through your email. So the solution here, the question is saying that the SAR owns a betting machine during the month ended 31st August 2018. After the game, SAR collected 200,000 Rwandan francs, and she paid out 50,000 on the Anson Manchester game. So calculate the tax what? The tax liability. So that means that the payments we have here, we have number one, this is the data, we have payments. The payments here is 50,000 Rwandan francs. And we have the corrections, which is worth 200,000 Rwandan francs. Therefore, you need to come up with this collections here. 200,000 minus 50,000 Rwandan francs, then times 13%, which gives you 19,500. 19,500 Rwandan francs. So let us look at the calculation of withholding tax on the winnings, which is 15%. This is to say that where the 15% is paid is on the side of the player, because in these gaming activities we have the operator of the machine, we can call him or the owner of the machine, and we have the person who has come to play. So the person who has come to play is the player. So therefore, the player, if he has betted some of the amount or weighted some of the amount, of course he will get some winnings. So those winnings, of course, they have to be taxed, and the tax on those winnings is 15%. That is what the law provides. But 13% is on the side of the operator, the one we have finished to look at in the example. So withholding tax of 15% should be imposed on the winnings of a player of a gaming activity. So the 15% tax applies the difference between the winnings of the player and the amount of the money invested by the player from the start until the end of the game. So when it comes for the computation, in computing the withholding tax, an income not exceeding 30,000, income not exceeding 30,000 Rwandan francs. 30,000 Rwandan francs here shall be rated at 0%. It shall be rated at 0%. So that means that if you get the winnings minus the wagered amount, the difference you get, you need first of all, before you tax it, you need first of all to raise 30,000 Rwandan francs. Then you get, then you apply it to 15%, and then you get your tax liability. So let us look at the example 1 under the calculation of winnings, withholding tax on the winnings of 15%. So let us look at this first example, where it says that the Elizabeth betted 1 million on the football match. After the end of the game, she was awarded 1.5 thousand Rwandan francs by the operator, by the gaming operator. So required to calculate the tax liability. So here we need to look at the winnings. This is the data. First of all, the winnings is how much. The winnings here, we have 1.5. We have the wagered is 1 million. 1 million. This is the wagered. And we need to find out the tax liability. We have said that on the side of the player, here, the 30,000 Rwandan francs, this one, is rated as 0%. So therefore, we need to get the difference of these winnings and wagered. So the figure we get, we raise first of all 30,000 that is rated as 0%, and then we apply it to 15%. So here we go. We have the 1.5 thousand minus 1 million. 1 million. So we get 500,000, and this 500,000 we need to first of all less 30,000, and then we apply to 15%. So here we shall get the 400,070. So it is the one that is subject to 15% of withholding tax, which has to give us 70,500 Rwandan francs. That should be maintained in this game. So before I go to this, I've not told you the declaration date of the people who are in these gaming activities. The taxpayer shall have to file and submit his or her declaration or the tax on gaming activities according to the form and procedure specified by CG. The CG I'm talking about here is Commissioner General of Rwanda Revenue Authority, and pay the tax due in the period not exceeding 15 days following the end of the month. So that means that the declaration is always 15 days. 15 days following the end of each month. 15 days following the end of each month. If maybe you have declared at 31st December 2019, you have to pay on 15th January of 2021. So that is the declaration period. So let us look at the records and reports that should be pertained in this game. So number one record here is the records of all written and unwritten contracts. Records of all written and unwritten contracts here of purchase or sale of gambling devices, contracts of purchase of purchase or sale of gambling, sale of gambling devices. So another record that should be maintained here is the daily computations of the drop. The daily computations of the drop of sales, for example, the drop of the drop of the sales and winnings. If the sales has shoot up or if the sales has dropped down, the winnings or loss for each game offered at the gaming premises. So another record they can maintain, that these business people can maintain, is the banking records of all accounts used that clearly identify all transactions made in connection with operation conducted from the gaming premises. The banking records related to this game, the gaming records that the banking records that are related to this gaming activity business. So from here, let us look at what they call. Let us look at the internal control systems in these gaming activities. First of all, the internal control systems. These are the systems or the mechanisms that are employed by the management to safeguard the company's assets, to safeguard the assets of the business or the organization. So therefore, the promoter of this business should establish the internal control systems in this kind of gaming activities, because if these internal control systems are not implemented or are not executed, the business will not thrive for so long. So therefore, you find the issues of the segregation of duties are not there. You find that there is a lot of theft of these devices. There is improper management of cash flows. There's a lot of things that will be distorted due to the fact that the gaming activities have not established the internal control system. So number one thing we can look at here, the kind of internal control system they can set. Number one, we can talk of the financial records that the gaming operator is required to keep should be accurate, reliable, and prepared on a timely basis. The financial records that the gaming operator is required to keep should be accurate. Should be reliable, should be coming from the right source, of course, and prepared on timely basis, and prepared on timely basis. So another, the second internal control system that has to be established here, there should be the segregation of duties. Segregation of duties. The segregation of duties here, it says that implies that the duties and responsibilities of the gaming employees at the gaming premises should be appropriately segregated. The duties and responsibilities of employees of the gaming company should be appropriately segregated. Another thing we can talk of here is the money and money equivalents should be safeguarded. Money and money, cash and cash equivalents